Thank you, Gareth Thomas, for giving your time to us,
Thank you.
especially for Afghanistan audience. Let's begin about the situation of human rights in Afghanistan. How to describe it, the situation in Afghanistan under the Taliban control?
I think it's grim. I mean, there's widespread concerns about the Taliban's treatment of women and girls, the denial of basic rights in terms of access to education. There's often a very primitive response to challenges to the Taliban's authority, and a lack of willingness to allow people to air genuine grievances about how the country is being run. So I think there is real concern about human rights in Afghanistan.
So now, after 5 years of Taliban ruling Afghanistan, women and girls in Afghanistan situation, you said grim. But you as an MP, as a member of UK Parliament, what's your response to the Afghan girls and women? They say you ignore, that the world ignore the situation of women in Afghanistan. What's your response to them?
Well, I hear on a regular basis from the Afghan community that I have in my constituency. I'm fortunate in having a very significant Afghan community in Harrow. And so it is impossible to ignore the concerns for me about what is going on in Afghanistan, particularly the plight of women and girls. I mean, this is a challenge to the international community. How do you apply pressure to get, in particular, as you've raised it, the plight of women and girls addressed and move forward in a positive way? So we need the UN to step up, but we need also the neighbours of Afghanistan to be willing to push on this issue too. And perhaps the UN needs to coordinate better those efforts to do so.
So you said there are lots of constituents, Afghan constituents, and your constituency.
I have lots of Afghan constituents.
That's right. What did you do about Afghanistan to make them happy in the past 5 years?
Well, I think what I hope is that the Afghan community here in Harrow will not be happy because in some ways there is so much more still to do in terms of putting pressure on the government here in the UK to do more, to push the UN to do more, to provide relief and assistance when we can do, to recognise the plight of Afghans when they make cases for asylum here in the UK, and to support organisations who are championing human rights in Afghanistan, for example, as well. We need to support those NGOs, those groups of people who are working together in Afghanistan. If we can provide support to them so that they can continue their efforts, then absolutely there is more to do. But what I would say to the Afghan community in my constituency is, we need to keep the pressure up on the international community together to do more in Afghanistan.
That's right. The UK government is helping Afghanistan, and the people of Afghanistan were thankful for them. But in the past 5 years, a generation is deprived from education. Maybe more than 15 millions of girls are not going to schools in Afghanistan. It is very dangerous for a country of 40 millions. Why the international community does not do anything for them?
Well, I think it's an issue we need to underline through the international community to the current Afghan leadership, the waste in potential that a lack of access to education means. It's how we grow our economies, how we grow our culture, how we improve the circumstances for all the citizens of our country. Education, it is not only is it a basic right, but it's in our country's self-interest to provide good education going forward. And perhaps that is an argument and an approach we need to make sure gets a hearing in the Taliban better than it has done.
Right. Do you think, have you any conversation with the government of United Kingdom in terms of their willingness on Afghanistan? Do you think they continue working like this with the NGOs and some officials of the Taliban? Are they willing to change the dynamic of politics in Afghanistan in terms of regime change? What do you think?
Well, you're asking me that at a moment when our government is in the middle of changing significantly. So I can't give you a proper answer to that. But I think I can't give you a complete answer to that. What I would say is I think there is widespread revulsion about the human rights situation in Afghanistan across the government party, and indeed I suspect across all parts of the House of Commons. The question is finding the right levers to use with the Taliban leadership in Afghanistan to try and make progress going forward, and to find those who can and are willing to use their influence with the Taliban leadership to try and get progress on these issues. And we will need our friends in Europe. We will need the US. We will need the neighbours of Afghanistan, Pakistan and Iran and others, to help in that role too.
Let's come to the politics of the region. Pakistan saying that the Afghan Taliban support TTP, Tariq-e-Taliban in Pakistan. And do you think that's the case that do you support the stance of the Pakistan or against the Taliban, or you're thinking that this is not the truth?
Until I've spoken to the Pakistan government, I mean, I couldn't give a view as to what is the approach of the Pakistan government. I think simply say they are one of a number of countries with, as their neighbours, with some with quite a lot of knowledge of who matters and who doesn't, and what the levers to try and get change in terms of improving human rights might be in Afghanistan. And we will certainly need them and others, as I said, the US and Europe and the UN, other institutions who can to do more to shift the dial on this question and to get an improvement in human rights.
Do you think there is any room for the United Kingdom to recognize the Taliban government in the near future?
I don't think that's something on the agenda at the moment. And I'm comfortable with that situation. I think there would have to be a significant change in human rights in Afghanistan for that to happen.
Right. Let's come to this documentary we just watched about disabilities, people with disabilities. We have watched a girl that lost his leg in a Taliban mine in Afghanistan, and now they say that they are deprived of their human rights. What can the United Kingdom can do for these people with disabilities?
Well, in a sense, one of the most powerful things we can do is draw attention to the issue, and in that way, the international spotlight on the plight of those with disabilities in Afghanistan will, I hope, help to move the situation forward. We have organisations that are in this country and access to organisations in other countries who are good on demining, so to help prevent a repeat of such a horrific loss. But I think our particular role at the moment has to be, as the film rightly drew out, holding a spotlight on the issue in Afghanistan, and that's crucial because, in a sense, we risk without such a film, the plight of those with disabilities in Afghanistan risks being ignored. And as people were saying on the film, just because someone has a disability doesn't mean they don't have real ability to make a change for the better in the country and in the community where they live. And it's about unlocking that ability to do so.
Right. Mr. Gareth, you mentioned you have a lot of conversation and you are in contact with Afghans in the UK and your constituents. What's your advice to them? What should they do to get out of the Taliban regime?
Well, I'm not going to give them advice on that question. I'm going to give them advice in terms of what they can do in Harrow to continue to improve the situation in our community here. I think for those with friends back home in Afghanistan, continue to raise awareness about issues that are affecting their families and communities in Afghanistan is something that I think they will continue to do, and that I am interested in helping them to do that. But my prime focus has got to be to help them in terms of their lives here in Harrow.
And do you think the UK government is in contact with the politicians, anti-Taliban politicians?
I am what's called a backbencher. So I'm not a minister. So I'm not familiar with what conversations the government might or might not be having with opposition politicians.
Right. Thank you so much for your time, sir.
Thank you.